Afternoon, everyone. I think that was such a wonderful way to wrap up the day. I, I suspect we're all fairly energized and, reflecting a little bit on what it means to be in the space and to be part of the journey that is unfolding before us insofar as AI is concerned. So thank you once again to Stephanie for imparting her knowledge on that part and, reminding us that we can't allow our agency to be surrendered to the machines, if you could put it that way. So in terms of the reflections for today, first and foremost, what a wonderful day in terms of female representation. From the get-go, we had a female CEO presenting to us, Hendra Meyer, speaking about igniting innovation through knowledge. She shared with us, the phenomenal strides that have taken place insofar as innovation management and the standards that speak to that. She alluded to the fact that they're already working on ISO 56013 and ISO 56001 was published last year. So from 1 to 13 in such a short space of time is a testament of the fact that, innovation management is becoming a key component of how we move forward, how we take the future into our hands as knowledge managers, and how we bring knowledge management to the fore insofar as how the world is evolving. For me, a key takeaway is the fact that there is that strong synergy between KM and IM. Knowledge management is providing that base through insights and lessons, while innovation management is providing the application that will transform that knowledge into value. I don't think there's any organization here, whether for profit or otherwise, that's not looking for some form of value. So the marrying of these two, I think, will support that. In addition to something that was so key that I loved, is the fact that she spoke about future-focused leaders. I think that coupling will empower a lot of people insofar as taking innovation management forward without leaving knowledge management behind. Elmi and Prof. Marty today were absolute champions. I think what you're taking on in the academic space in terms of empowering students to prepare for the world of work is commendable. And that is speaking from somebody who came straight out of varsity and had to work and had no clue what I was getting myself into. That theoretical knowledge you gain in class is far different. I'm sure you guys can attest to that as well. So to have the academics taking an active role in solving this problem, because essentially it is a problem. You've got line managers saying, I have to handhold this person, whereas I need them to hit the ground running. The work that you're doing through these two assignments, I think is empowering young students to come out of the academic space empowered to hopefully hit the ground running when they embark on their world of work. So kudos to you and thank you for championing that on. Ntate Molala. So apart from the wonderful debate that transpired later on in the day, I think you stood here as somebody who's very passionate about KM and it reflected in everything that you spoke about today. Thank you for championing it in spaces where maybe it goes unnoticed or gets sidelined. The work that the NSG is doing, I think, is leading that charge and we hope that you do not lose your vigor and your fuel for that. I love the fact that you made a strong emphasis on the fact that KM practitioners are not holders of knowledge, but we are rather the facilitators of the process of sharing it. And I think we need to really keep that at the forefront of our minds in all the engagements that we take on as KM practitioners. It's so easy to get bogged down and start, wanting to act like you know it all, or for people to put you on a pedestal to say, no, but you know it, you tell us. You are merely a facilitator, a privilege at that to be that. So don't allow the noise within the rooms that we enter, to muddy the waters where you're no longer functioning in your lane and therefore cannot produce what you're intended to. So thank you for that reminder, Tate Molal. And, you know, the intervention that you brought into COGTA was triggered by the floods. And so often are our expertise called in as a result of a crisis. It is very unfortunate. I think Kelly mentioned it earlier on, where she said that we need to stop being very reactive in our approach to KM and start leading the charge, so that by the time things come, we've got a strong foundation to be able to stand firm. And I think that was a big takeaway for me insofar as your case study and intervention that you presented to COGTA. You're empowering them to get to a point where they're no longer succumbing to the floods, as it may be, but are able to stand, you know, like umhlanga. I forget what it is in English. Is it a reed? Yeah. You don't snap. You might sway a little bit, but you can stand firm in what you're doing. And I think a lot of our departments need that sense of resilience, and KM is, you know, at the core of ensuring that we can build that sense of strength and resilience in our undertakings. So Prof. Mati came through again, representing Louisa Fenta. What a wonderful study. I think today, maybe one of the key things is just reminding us of the importance of being human. We're so bogged down with the technologies that we're being exposed to and so on, that maybe we forget or we underestimate the value that we have as human beings. And I think this research is bringing that to the fore, that a lot of the times ICT, please don't shoot me. I also come from the ICT department, but a lot of the times ICT will want to give direction where they should only be enabling. So, you know, the example or the case study in question looked at that very situation where you've got this ECM, which you probably spent millions on, and you're failing to get the right adoption because the people you charged with that responsibility were only they were only focused on the implementation part of things. That was their milestone, that was their key deliverable, and then they're out the door. But you're now left with a white elephant that you cannot utilize, or you're not utilizing to its full effect. So I think it was just so important, and it touched home for me because we're experiencing very similar situations where we have something that has been implemented, but we're failing to institutionalize it. So we'll definitely be looking into that framework to see how we can, from the KM space at least, because you've mentioned the fact that it's at the core, you know, help to institutionalize these very systems that, you know, the business has invested so much, but doesn't see enough ROI or within a reasonable time to warrant, you know, sustaining it going forward. So well done to Louisa for taking that on. And I think it offers an opportunity to colleagues to even expand further on that research and grow it further, because I think there's a lot of conversation and thought that, you know, exists around that space. Dr. Paul came through for Samantha later on in the day and reminded us of our gown wearing days during COVID and the nothing on my side chair. But I think my key takeaway from Dr. Paul and Samantha's work is, you know, although remote work has its benefits in the form of the possible work-life balance and maybe greater flexibility, there are challenges that cannot go ignored, especially in the KM space. Our work is highly reliant on people and the interaction with people. People don't trust what they don't know or can't see or can't touch. So once you start functioning in a purely virtual environment, you start to erode away at that sense of trust, making it a lot harder to fulfill the mandates that we have as KM practitioners. So I think it's a lot of food for thought, especially for our HR practitioners as well who are in the room, insofar as the policies that are being brought in to manage the whole concept of work from home or remote work, that we need to try and find that balance and maybe look more creatively or innovatively at how we bring that sense of trust, that sense of humanity back into what is now becoming a very disengaged environment as a result of being remote. Kele, well done. Well done. You're a testament to the fact that, delayed is not denied. So 7 years means nothing because you've got that paper now, and you don't only just have that paper, but you are unlocking a conversation that is so critical within our space. A lot of us come from the government space, whether it's local or national government, and your research has touched on things that are a pain point for many, I would believe. And it's an opportunity for us to now start unpacking that further. It's also a challenge to us to say, don't sit in your own little corner and think that the problem that you have and have solved can't be shared with the next colleague and applied therein. You mentioned how you struggled to find articles in the last 10 years at least that could speak to your research accordingly. And that's because we're sitting shy, not wanting to share or come to the front and say, I've done my research, or I've done this little case study or written this white paper, and maybe it can contribute something in the space. So I would encourage colleagues to step out of that little box that we're all placing ourselves under. This type of work is not just for the academics. I think the academics are as reliant on us as we are on them to drive the research forward and to open up a new world of thinking insofar as the topics that come up within our space. So yeah, kudos to you, Kelebogile. Thank you for that. You are visible leadership personified. So. And then, yeah, I think the chairs were just placed back to back on purpose. They just needed to keep us on our toes or keep us awake, because from Kelebogile's presentation, we moved on to Dr. Mabaso, who spoke on something that I think is a pain point in many organizations. I stand here as somebody who is facing a very similar problem. And strangely enough, we're embarking on a project that we have also termed the legacy project. So maybe it's a term that should be coined in KMSA for anyone who's looking to deal with the retirees and the knowledge flight risks related to that. Just say, I'm embarking on the legacy project, and then we all know what you're going to be doing and can support accordingly. But yeah, kudos to you guys at ATNS, Dr. Mabaso, and to Jeanette. She's still in here. I believe she laid a couple of bricks before she left. So well done to you guys. I said to Dr. Mabaso earlier on after her presentation that I think the work that they've done is reflecting so much of what we're experiencing within our various spaces that, it would be horrible to not bench learn from them. And to maybe even take it a step further and get to the point where this becomes part of the KM tools across the globe, because the issue of knowledge flight or the knowledge flight risk is not something that is just contained to our space only. The baby boomers are all going on retirement soon, and that's happening across the world. So if we can find a way that, can help us transfer and retain that knowledge, I think it's something that should be, documented down and shared across the board. So thank you for that. I believe it sparks a conversation of potential work and papers to be written by many of us in that regard. And Dr. Mabaso has agreed to support. And I see Prof. Mati nodding. I hope that means she's also going to agree to support and help colleagues who might decide to take this further in terms of their own studies and research. I don't think I can say anything further in terms of Stephanie. Her presentation and her exercises spoke for themselves. And if anything, the idea of us not losing our agency should be something that we walk out of with today. Unlocking our consciousness and then retaining our agency so that the machines can never have an upper hand upon us. So with that, thank you so much for today, colleagues. Thank you for being so engaged. I think there are less empty chairs today than there were yesterday. So that's a great thing. I believe we will see each other later today. So I won't take any more time. People need to go get their face beats done and. So with that, thank you very much.